All right.
Chris and Dan show. Um, how's it going?
Going.
Chris, our channel is doing really well.
Exaggerate much?
Yes.
It's only a slight exaggeration.
Well, we're planning the Save Our Sites conference for those that are curious. And I've never been to Oklahoma City. So do you have anything, have you Googled it before going? Like most people like to Google places before they go to like get a idea of what's going on. I asked Brad a lot of stuff, and Brad's gonna find a speakeasy too for us to do our party
The
or our
only
secret, our secret.
My only mission there, which I'll probably Google before I go, is I want to get a new cowboy hat and cowboy boots.
I think that's more Texas though.
It is, but I think Oklahoma has quite a bit of cowboy
Well, yeah, so
paraphernalia.
does Arizona. I mean, but
Well,
it's
they
not.
don't have it in here in California.
They do
There's
like in
like
Temecula and stuff.
there's a few stores like
Norco,
Rand
Norco.
Norco doesn't have a store.
What?
Oh, Julie and I have been there.
Okay, you gotta go to Temecula then.
There's a store in Orange County.
Ah,
I think
yes.
it's in the city
Good
of
old
Orange.
OC behind the
Yeah,
orange curtain.
I think it's in the actual city of Orange.
Yep.
It's right off the 55. Went to that one.
Yeah, I
They
know
had
where
some
that's
pretty
at.
cool stuff, but there wasn't a hat or boots that I liked there. Need to have
What are
bigger
you looking for?
selection.
Like the MAGA special or
No, I have my cowboy boots are very old.
the all my
Um,
exes live in Texas?
no, I'm not looking for anything like that. I have very large feet. I wear a size 15 or 14 depending.
What?
Yeah, so I need a large selection because they don't
Big ass
not
feet, man.
like at this one in Orange, right? They only had
How
two
did you
pairs
end
of
up
boots.
negotiating budgets and not
Two
playing
pair
being a
two
field
pairs
goal
of boots.
kicker or something?
Two pairs of boots is all they had that fit me. So, and I didn't like either of those two pairs. So I need to go to a bigger boot store to find a pair I want.
Were they a little sassy?
What do you mean? The salespeople or the boots?
The boots, they have some in West Hollywood, but they're a little sassy.
Yeah, I'm not going for pink boots with really high heels.
Okay, so Gavin Newsom has a podcast. You want to give
Yeah,
your commentary on that?
I'm sure it's worth missing.
He actually sold it fairly well in his tweet. He
Yeah,
said,
okay.
I will have people that I disagree with, I will have people that I agree with, and we're just gonna have open debate and open dialogue. So now I know that's probably not true. He is gonna have
Hmm.
people he disagrees with, but he has full editing control.
Exactly.
So if he ends up looking like an idiot, they're gonna edit that out.
Or just not play it.
Well, I'm sure his guest would, well, maybe he'll even have them CDA, like, hey, you can't talk about this if we cancel it. But I don't think then he'll get any meaningful guests that he disagrees with.
So I would love to be on that podcast. Like, for example, the other day, I just didn't say anything. I thought about saying something, but I chose not to when Edie said I'm on the left. And
She is, but she's a lovable lefty. I said it in the text.
yeah, I know you did. But so
She's
here
not.
is so my honest opinion
Edie
is
Edens is a lovable lefty.
I don't know what her true political beliefs are. She didn't really go into it.
She was raised in a Native American community
I heard all of that.
on the reservation, basically,
Yeah.
or close to it. And so she has like strong beliefs about underserved populations. I think and I think there's a lot of people like this that resonate with the left, but are not actually leftist. Like
So
left leaning is not leftist.
sure.
I used to be left leaning. I mean, I still probably am left leaning in many ways. I don't believe in collectivism though,
Yeah.
but I'm socially liberal.
Yeah, to a degree. I think you were a lot more previously. I think you're a lot less now, honestly.
Maybe,
Um,
maybe,
but
but we change. Who was it that said
that
the
that
Stoics said we never step in the same river twice? Like the
uh,
river changes and so do we.
and it's funny how that works because generally they say, and I've said this to you numerous times, but they say the older you get, the more conservative you become. Generally,
Yeah.
I'm actually the opposite. I've become more left.
No, so by the time you're ready to like pass away, you're gonna be like a leftist.
Yeah, it might be like Edie.
Pink hair.
Yeah.
I don't think Edie's a leftist, man.
Well, she did make a leftist statement. She just said because she said something about how white people are privileged, and
Privileged. Well, let's talk
which
about this.
which I don't agree with.
I know you don't, but this is one thing where I think it got way out of hand. Just because you're white doesn't mean you're privileged. But I think when they say things like that, what they mean is any white person compared to like they usually are using it in comparison to a black person, right?
Hmm.
So
Agreed.
what I think they mean by this is not that white people are privileged. What they mean is compare they take the regular white person, same economic strata as a black person. So you're kind of comparing apples to apples, just skin colors different, right? Like
Hmm.
let's say same neighborhood, same income, whatever, same family structure, but one is
Same
white, one is black.
socioeconomic
Yeah, yeah.
background.
But one is white, one is black.
Hmm.
I think what Edie means by this is the white person in our society does get slightly the upper hand when it comes to acceptance and like just regular things like going into a job interview or interacting with a police or basically the majority of interactions that the black person and the white person do, the white person's going to have a slight edge. And I don't think that's untrue. And that's what
So,
I mean. That's what I think most people mean by white privilege. And I think where white people like you get upset is because you're interpreting it as they're saying all white people are privileged. Those are two
so
different things.
okay. I'll accept your argument, and I'm not going to say it's wrong. But what I will say is there's also contradictory information
Wait,
to
wait, so
what you
you
just
agree with what
posed.
I said?
No, I am not
Oh,
agreeing or disagreeing.
I think it's true what I just said.
No, I don't think you can say what's true because, okay, um,
Well, all we have are anecdotes and subjectivity in this
exactly.
case.
That's why I
But,
don't think you can say what's true.
well,
What I
no, I think everyone can have an opinion on that because it's all anecdotal.
most
I think
definitely,
everybody can.
but okay, let's take a few
And maybe that's
examples.
why people argue about this because like
Sure,
nobody really sees the same
sure.
exact way. But
Well, that's why I think these arguments are stupid because I don't think you can come to an agreement on them because
right,
there's
that's a
no
fair enough point.
there's no absolute information to prove who's correct here, right? And my argument, like I'd give one argument in terms of this, right? What if it has nothing to do with the color of your skin, more to do with people's stereotype and that's been developed because of certain culture?
But yeah, but that's part of it, you know.
But
Like
it's not because again you'd have to go back in time to how the Chinese were treated, how the Japanese were treated. They were treated awfully,
right, right,
worse than black people.
right.
Okay,
And if you would go back in
but
those
now they're
times,
not. Why?
right,
Because
right.
people have said their culture's
That
good.
was when the Japanese were held in
They
internment camps. But if you would travel back in time to that time frame in the United States,
Mhm.
you don't have to go far. If you take around that time period, you take a Japanese kid and a white kid, same social economic strata and everything.
Yeah, the
The
white
white
person was
kids
treated
got
for it. But
privilege.
this why is that though? That's what I'm telling you. I don't think it has anything to do with skin color. I don't think it has anything to do with any of that, which I disagree with because that's how they're positioning it.
But
I
you're
think it's
arguing the reason, but what
right.
she's arguing is the phenotype of that.
Yeah, fair enough. But
She's not arguing the reason. It's just on the surface level, this is
yeah, but see
objectively true.
that's where I completely disagree with leftists because they take everything out of context. Don't worry about the context.
Selective,
Yeah,
but
don't worry about the context. Here's the problem. We
right,
need more government
right.
to solve it.
But
And
like
I
when
and that
when she
drives me
said that,
nuts.
well, yeah, yeah, that part it gets too crazy because they go from like making a valid claim, which I actually agree with her,
Mhm.
to jumping to a clearly you have to agree with this, otherwise you're a racist resolution that is collectivism.
Mhm.
That's the part I don't make that jump, but I do agree with the initial statement. Like, yes, white people like objectively generally have more privilege than blacks in
Okay,
this country.
but I would expand upon that argument and I would say you could take the next step. Asians have more privilege than white people and thus black people. In my opinion, they do.
Uh,
Their culture is valued higher. Um, they're generally perceived to be of higher intelligence. They make more money. So yeah, I believe This is my opinion.
I mean, should they when they make statements like this, they're blanket statements, right? They're not like nuanced. Like, let's look at Asians are actually rejected from colleges lately because there's too many of them. So in that argument, they're not privileged,
And that's the same with white people too. They're rejected on the same
right?
basis.
And in that argument, black people and Hispanics are privileged.
Mm.
But then they say, okay, but what about like interaction with police, or what about like white people don't get approached by
But
ICE,
but let's tackle that one idea real quick.
the
If you're
police?
yeah, if you're a cop and you know in all your, let's say you're a 20-year experienced cop, and when you have interactions with black people, they tend to go wrong more often
Right,
than with
right.
other
We're
groups.
not judging the police's action.
No, I
We're
understand that.
just
That's where this is
objectively,
outside of
yeah,
context,
we're just
right?
objectively discussing the outcome.
Yeah.
Same thing right now, what's going on with Hispanics or anyone that looks like an immigrant and ICE. It's like if you are a legal US citizen, but you are Hispanic and you're in a neighborhood where there are a lot of illegals and ICE is running crazy through there,
Hmm.
you are going to be hassled. You're not going to be necessarily having a good time right now. Like every day you go to school or something, somebody's going to be stressing you. Like, where's your papers?
Well, I
White
think
people in that
that's
neighborhood,
definitely an exaggeration. It's not
but
going to
it's
be an
happening in
everyday.
LA.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt that it is,
But
but
white
it's not an
people,
everyday
okay,
occurrence.
sure, but a white person in that same situation is not going to get hassled. And so
Well, I think there's a
that's
simple.
privilege.
I think there's a simple solution
Yes,
to
yes, but
this.
forget solutions for now. Just Edie's made her statement not to come up with solutions. She
Again, it's
just
out of,
made it.
but it's also out of context too, because I'm sure
Sure.
white people in certain areas are getting harassed too, right? If you go to an area that's say all
But yeah,
Russian or Ukrainian, and there's a lot of those that are here right now illegally. Probably if you're living in that community and you were born in America, you might get harassed too.
yeah. And I went, many times to the hood, and everyone assumed I was a cop. Everyone assumed I was an undercover cop, right?
Hmm.
Like in that setting, I was not privileged at all. I was actually a target. Like, hey, this is
Hmm.
not maybe not safe to be here, right?
Very uncomfortable.
But what Edie's arguing is the vast majority of cases, if you can just put them all in one pie, in a pie chart, the majority of interactions where white people in this country have privilege versus minorities is a lot more. That's all she was saying. Not
Yeah.
getting into reasons why,
Again,
not
I don't
getting
agree
into.
with that.
I do, but I don't agree with jumping to the next conclusion of we need collectivism as the answer
So
or big government as
I
the
don't.
answer.
So
That's not the solution.
see where I guess you have to come down to what define privilege, right? Because I don't think it's a privilege to not be able to get.
Privilege is less friction in whatever endeavor you are doing engaged in at that moment. Like if you have to work harder to do something that moment, or if you have more friction in that encounter, that's less privilege.
So
So going
outside
into
of
a job interview where they look at you funny because you're black versus they look at you normal because you're white, that's a little bit of friction. Having to overcome the fact that you're black to get a job by being extra articulate is friction. There's a lot of cases of friction. I mean, there's infinite examples of friction. And there's cases of white people experiencing friction too, like me when I was in the hood. Like people literally said, "What's up, 50?" Like that means undercover.
Mhm.
And I was like, "No, no, I'm just here to pick up a patient." And they're like, "All right, 50." Like they didn't believe me. That was friction. If I were black, right, in that same exact scenario, nobody's talking to me. No issues, right?
Sure.
Less friction.
So again, I think it all boils down to culture and stereotypes, right? I
Yeah, but
don't think it's a
you're
privilege.
looking for a solution.
No,
What
that's not a
she's been
solution.
saying is,
What I'm saying is we all 90% of the time we're stereotyping.
okay,
That's the
well
only
then
way we
what
can
you're
deal
looking
with all.
for is a like a cause. She's not going
Still
that
not
far. She's
looking
just
for.
stating,
So no, no. What I'm saying is, in your example of being in the hood,
yeah.
right? There's stereotyping,
Hmm.
right? There's a white person that's probably at least reasonably well
Yes.
groomed.
And if I were black in that same situation, I would have privilege in that case.
Well, no, you wouldn't be an outlier.
No, no, but I would have privilege in
See,
that
I
case.
don't see. I just
If
don't
you
think of that as
compare
privilege.
the hypothetical black version of me in that situation to the
Mhm.
white version of me in that situation, the black person in that situation has the privilege. The privilege of not experiencing friction. That's all they're trying to say. I don't have issues with that. They're explaining the state of affairs. What I have issues with, and this is where we start to agree, is they use this now as let's jump to collectivism. And if you don't want to jump to collectivism, that means you're okay with the privilege and the
So,
inequality. And that's not true. I'm not
well,
okay with inequality in the United States.
see, here's where you and I are not getting beyond the privilege part of it, because I think it boils down to um, really just culture, right? So,
Right. Now you're getting into like, let's figure out solutions. That's fine. That's debate.
because I really don't think it has anything to do with color. Now, yes, it's associated with black people right now for the most part,
Right.
but that's because of the culture. This can be
Well,
overcome if the culture's changed.
some would argue this is the ugly side of capitalism, and maybe we need to tweak capitalism, and then that leads towards collectivism. Like, there's a lot of
Uh,
potential solutions.
Again, there was a solution when the Chinese came, when the Italians came, when the Japanese came in great numbers. This was all resolved because their culture assimilated.
Well, the Asians didn't really assimilate into the
Sure, they
culture.
did. Sure, they did. At that
Not really.
time,
They
less
just
now.
behaved. They just played along, but they're still, if you go to like most Asian households with immigrant parents, they speak Chinese or Korean. They're respectful,
Mhm.
right? So, but like that's another topic. What Edie is talking about in this case is this privilege that I know you have issues with, but if I'm trying to explain it to you to where you
No,
maybe have less
I
issues with it.
I get your explanation.
Okay, thank
I
you.
just don't agree with it.
All right, but at least I
I
did a fairly decent job of
sure.
explaining it.
I and I don't necessarily disagree with it either. I just
Well,
think
see, there you go.
privilege. I
What
think
did you say on the
privilege.
text? Ding, ding, ding.
I think. I
What an
think.
ass. What an
I. I.
asshole.
I think privilege is the wrong word.
Sure, but that you're getting into semantics, and what you really need to focus on is like the core of what they're trying to articulate,
Mm.
not semantics.
Well, it's used for power.
Of course, but you're getting into again like
Of
something else.
course, I understand this is not
Yeah,
to your exact point, but
we gotta just go one thing at a time. Okay, I agree with Edie, but then where she jumps to like collective, and no, 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 I don't listen. I agree with you, but I actually think this is a family issue. Like individuals have to solve,
yeah,
right?
that's where
And
you and
that's
I agree.
yeah, that becomes culture and
And then once everybody understands this is the culture, whether it be hardworking or whatever the
Malcolm X
case may
said,
be,
listen, Malcolm X said it best, man. Who did he say the black man should be most fearful of? The white liberal. He's pointing to the same thing, but he would also
they're a
agree with
wolf in
me.
sheep's clothing or something like that. He
Yes,
said,
but I'm sure if Malcolm X was on this pod right now, he would say, no, there is a privilege. But I also, and then he would go a different way with, right? He would have his own take.
"Sure,
But I think he would admit there is probably many cases where whites have extraordinary privileges over blacks. And he would also concede to my point that, yeah, there's times where blacks have privilege over white, but those are not like commercially viable, like, or beneficial situations. They're
mm,
just like survival mode, right? But for white people, have the privilege generally in a economic, socioeconomic context. And
well,
that's where it gets deep too.
sure." Leftists have always liked their cheap labor.
Lyndon Johnson was such an asshole. I have a goal. Did you? Okay, so before we get into the reaction, because I know you gotta go. Lyndon Johnson was a total douche, right? Like a total asshole, total
Yeah, no
douche.
doubt, no
But he
doubt.
is credited with like civil rights, basically.
Yeah, no, he was thinking far ahead, and
Yeah, but there. Okay, so the interesting thing about LBJ, who you would think is like not a very interesting person.
oh no, I've read quite a bit about him.
Well, there's a biographer named Ron Chernow. He's still alive. He's like 90.
Hmm.
He wrote 4 books on LBJ. Each book's like 1,000 pages.
Wow.
He's writing his fifth one right now. And he
Wow.
said, I want to finish this before I die. And you know how he writes? On a typewriter. Like he
An
goes
old school
every day,
typewriter.
old school typewriter, man, Ron Chernow. And this book is gonna come out, and he said that'll complete the five volume series on what I think to be one of the most interesting people in history,
Hmm.
LBJ. And he's very critical of him in the book. Like, I mean, but you can kind of see LBJ shifting his morals too, like throughout the volume. So, anyways, I'm waiting for that one to be released so I can read all five at once. But that's gonna be a chore, man.
Five
Five,
thousand pages.
basically 5,000 pages. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he
So
won like Pulitzer Prize on like every single one.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, Ron Chernow, check it out, everyone.
So I just want to make one more statement before we go to the
Okay.
video. So in regards, I do honestly believe, honestly, and Dan knows this because I actually have said this to him since I've known him. Every
Mhm.
person needs to be judged individually. You can't group judge
Yes,
people.
individualism. Yep.
But it's unfortunate as a group, because oftentimes that's what people do, judge on a group, and it's unfortunate. The way you pull yourself out as a group is the dominance of the group is a certain way, right? Or
Correct.
at least the perceived dominance of the group.
Right.
Um, it's just my thought
And
on the
there
topic.
was a good book on that, Ayn Rand, Virtue of Selfishness. And it's not Ron Chernow. Ron Chernow is another author. It's Robert Caro. And Robert
Okay.
Caro is the guy. He also wrote The Power Broker on Moses, the guy who basically built New York City. And it's also 1,200 pages. I read that one, but it's Robert Caro, so my bad. Ron Chernow is another biographer, and I got him mixed up. But Robert Caro, who is also very good too, but Robert Caro is the one who's 90 years old and at an old school typewriter, finishing up as we speak. Lyndon Johnson, Volume 5.
I don't
Crazy,
think
man.
I don't think I would lift that load, but that's on you.
That's dedicating like decades to the
Yeah, you're
journaling of
gonna
one man.
you're gonna dedicate a half a year to reading his books.
Yeah,
5,000
imagine.
pages?
Like each book's like 1,000 pages,
Yeah,
basically.
5,000 pages. It would probably take you at
Let's
least six
see.
months.
Yeah, I'm on one right now. The Path to Power, The Years of Lyndon Johnson, Volume 1, paperback. It is, how many pages is this? Pages, 960 pages, Volume 1. I'm not gonna look at the other ones, but they're all around that length.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
So, how many pages you read a day?
like 20 to 100
Really? That many?
on a good day.
Well, if you want to get through 5,000 pages in 6 months, you have to read 28 pages a day.
Yeah, on one topic. Like how I read now, 20 to 100, it's like amongst five books.
Okay.
Like I don't like to be on one book that long.
I read maybe 5 pages a day. That's top end.